How's it going? Anthony back with CNN. Alright, so this episode took a while to come out, but it is out. So go ahead, tune into it, check it out. Alright, so I left off that the therapist said, "So, do you know what's going on with you?" I said, "No." He goes, "Alright, let me go ahead and draw it. I'm not the best artist, but I'm gonna draw it out for you." And he drew it on the board, and he said, "Your hip broke right here, and right here." So it's literally one hip, the other hip, and down the middle. And I was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Yeah, you also fractured your lower spine and your lower tibia." And I'm like, "Oh man." And he's just like, "Yeah." He's like, "We've had that situation before. It's gonna take a while to heal." And he's all like, "But I know you could get past it." And I'm like, "Okay." And it gets to the point where he comes in the next day, and he even tells me, he's like, "Get ready for tomorrow because I'm gonna have you go on the wheelchair." And in my head, I'm like, "Alright, it's nothing. You know, I've done it before. I've been on the wheelchair for 2 years and a half. It's nothing that I haven't done before." And he comes in the next day. He goes, "You ready?" And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." And I remember my brother and my sister were here. They were there with me at that point. And he rolls the wheelchair. He goes, "Go ahead. Let's see what you got." And I was just like, "Okay." And in my head, I remember how to get on the wheelchair. So I go, and right when I go right off the bat to try to get up, I go like this, and I'm like, it hurts. And he's all like, "Yeah, right." Like he already knew what was going on. This therapist was not a good person. He said, yeah, exactly." And he goes, "It's hard, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he already knows the pain that I'm feeling. So at this point, he goes and he teaches me a certain way that I could get up just off to the side of the bed. And it's all arm strength. So I'm so lucky that I have been working on my arms, because I had to literally pull myself up with the right hand, then reach over with the left, pull myself, get to the side, and then I couldn't move my legs at all. So from there, he would grab my legs, move them off to the side, and then at that point, I would end up going off to the side, and then he'd be like, "Okay, go ahead and transfer on the chair." And then all arm strength, I would just push it from the bed onto the chair, and then get on the chair. I still remember I only lasted 10 minutes, and that's because it was painful. And I remember after that, he goes, "You want to stay on it longer, or are you good?" I'm like, "No, I'm good." And he's like, "Alright, sounds good. Let's get you back in bed." So I get back in bed. Well, this went on probably for about 2 weeks before I remember that my time on the wheelchair boosted up to about half an hour. And it was all a slow movement, slow process. And from there, I remember that already after a month, I had already boosted that time to like 5 hours around there. And that was with Oxycontin, which wasn't good because it was getting to my head. But from there, I ended up, after that first month, I ended up getting my point to the level where I stopped dwelling. And I had ordered this lanyard, right, for my YouTube channel. And when that lanyard came in, I told my mom, "Oh, can you bring it to me?" And she's all like, "Okay." So when she brought it to me, at that point, that's when I felt on fire, and I was like, "Alright, let's live this situation with joy." You know, I'm like, if I can't change it, let's at least live it with joy. So I wore it, and I went around rehab, and I was like, "Hey, if you're interested in checking out what happens to me after I get out of here, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and keep up with the videos." And most of them were like, "Okay, yeah, sure, awesome." And they put the camera on the QR. They would click on the link, subscribe. They're like, "Awesome, I'll definitely keep up." I'm like, "Alright, cool. Comment, like the videos or whatever." They're like, "Okay." Well, I went around doing this, right? I remember I started off with about 535 subscribers. When I left that rehab, I literally left with like 741. So it was a good amount of subscribers. So you already know I lived that tribulation with joy. And let me tell you that something that I loved was that, on the top of the fact that I was going around having people to subscribe to my channel, on top of that, I got to the point where I got driven to just want to do better for myself. Since my partner with the B3 bands had went in there and sicked me out over not having those bands in there. And let me tell you, I know why he said that and why he actually made me get on those bands. Because strapping those bands on my thigh and pumping them up with air, to the max, I'll pump them to the max. It actually gave the pressure to the legs to the point where I could do leg lifts, get the burn, and it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt as much. Because I remember that when I didn't have the bands, I could not lift them at all. I could not lift them at all. And something that helped out with that is that's why I learned that these bands are great to heal past or present injuries. Because as we speak, as the pictures that you're seeing on the side that I've been putting up, I was one of the hardest working people there. I started living confident. I was rolling my wheelchair, every day into therapy. I'm like looking around for a therapist. Yo, who could help me out, take care of me? I'm trying to get that pumping, and most of them were like, "Oh, hey, you go ahead, man, do your thing. I'm gonna go ahead, take care of other people, but I'll make sure you're good." I'm just like, all right, cool. And I'll start, lifting weights. I'll start lifting up the weights that they had there. I remember that I started using the bands in rehab too, and I would lift as heavy as I could, which was 25 pounds. And I don't think they had more than 25 pounds, and that's because of the fact that it's older people. There's not no young people in rehab. But I was one of the ones where I was driven. I was literally lifting 25 pounds with the bands on, and that's why I know that you could grow your arms like that, because I went in there with 14.5-inch arms. When I got out of there, I'm like, oh yeah, measure my arms. And they're like, okay, sounds good. So I go like this, I get it ready. They put the band around my arm, they measure it, and they're like, 17.5. I'm like, 17.5? They're like, yeah. I'm like, nice. I'm like, okay, so they grew. I'm like, nice. Okay, they grew about 4 inches to 3.5 inches. I'm like, that's what's up. And they showed me that I got my biceps bigger by just lifting 25-pound weights. Not only that, but I got stronger too, because there's this workout that this therapist had me do in there that's called Raise the Roof. I still remember the name, and that's because I liked it. All right, which all you really got to do, if anybody wants to try it out, you could try it out on your own, and you could actually see how impactful it is. But all it is I would be on the wheelchair, and he would have me put my arms to the side, lift myself up, then down, and then you raise the roof, and that's one. So then you do another one, and you do two, then you do it in two, then you do it again, and he goes, oh yeah, when I do those, I can only do about 7. I'm like, 7? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, sounds good. And now I already have a challenge, so I'm like, nah, I gotta be doing more than 7. And he got impressed because I got to like 9, and it's tiring, because the thing is, what goes up must come down. So literally, I would, if I knew already that if I went to like 11, and then I'd have to go, 1, 2, 3, all the way. I already knew that. I'm like, man, now I gotta go back down. So at that point, you gotta go do 11 all over again. Do the dips and then raise the roof. From there you go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, all the way back down. And that's what makes it difficult. And when I was doing that, they started calling me Armstrong, and that's because I was strong on my upper body, and like I said, I was motivated, I was driven, I was working out super hard. I was one of the hardest working patients that they had. They loved me, every therapist there knows who I am, because I left my mark there, and there's about to be sirens, so be ready. Okay, but like I say, yeah, I was one of the hardest working patients there, and that's why I understand when people go through a situation that is tough, that you do dwell, and you feel low. The thing is not to get stuck in those predicaments. You can't get stuck in those situations. You got to live your life on play. You can't just pause and stay there the whole time and be playing the victim. You're never going to get through your situation. So if you look at it in a way like, okay, it happened. I can't change the situation that happened, but what can I learn from this? What do I have to do to move past this situation? You know, how can I embrace what happened and live with more experience, live with more knowledge, live by learning stuff in the situation? You know, I still remember a lot of, I know at least 5 different workouts that I learned in rehab, and that was because they taught them to me. You know, with dumbbells, I always do dumbbells. I love dumbbells. They're the best thing that I could do to improvise. And as you see, I've got the results already, and that's just nothing with dumbbells. You know, everybody's always like at the gym, hey, you know, this cable machine's really good. I know it's really good, but is it good for me? No. I'm improvising and doing the workout that I know that's good for me, you know, and at the end of the day, I already know that not everybody could do what other people could do. But there will be a second part. I just don't want to make it too long. But keep up with the video. I'm gonna go ahead and get the second part in next time. And go ahead, like the video and comment down below, alright? Appreciate you guys. Anthony out.